Hi, and welcome to Say Grace, Food for Thought and Hospitality. I'm Steve Palmer, and I invite you to join me as we explore the stories behind leaders in the hospitality industry and beyond. Say Grace is a place to reflect, connect, and savor thoughtful narratives. Everyone has a seat at our table. So pull up a chair and let's discover the transformative power of hospitality together. Hi, I'm Steve Palmer, and I'm very excited to welcome chef, author, and podcast host André Natera to Say Grace today. Based in Austin, Texas, André has gained a wealth of knowledge working in hospitality, working in luxury, hotels, and high-end restaurants. With his 27-year culinary career, he has cooked along Michelin-starred chefs, renowned culinary experts, and most recently was the culinary director of the Fairmont Austin, one of the world's largest four-star hotels. Here he oversaw an impressive culinary program, including the esteemed four-star restaurant Garrison. Today, André has dedicated himself to mentoring young chefs and sharing his industry knowledge through multiple platforms. He is the current host of the Chef's PSA podcast and former host of Run the Pass podcast. He has developed an online course titled Leading Like an Executive Chef and is the author of a series of books that combine humor, practical advice for novice chefs, cooks, guiding them through the intricacies of the kitchen. André is also involved in organizations like the James Beard Foundation Awards, Mentor BKB, Texas Food and Wine Alliance, and the Epicurean World Master Chef Society. His passion and experience are inspirational for leaders of all levels within hospitality. Welcome, André, to Say Grace.
Thank you. Yeah,
And you just spoke at our leadership conference yesterday, and you were awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it was a good group. I'll tell you that when I got there, it's like, not only is it a good group, but it's such a young, vibrant group of switched on chefs, because that's mostly who I was talking to.
Right.
But the whole room was just engaged and sharp. And I was energized when I left. I was like, and you know what was interesting is as soon as I left, I was like, I want to make friends with these people. They're really cool. You really have something great going on.
We love making friends. Listen, Kevin Boehm from Boca Restaurant Group, who spoke the day before, and Will Guidera are both friends of mine because I literally walked up and said, "Would you be my friend?"
Yeah.
And they're both such great humans that they said yes. Wow, so much to talk about. We'll start. We'll kind of go chronologically. What made you want to be a chef?
Well, here's an interesting story. Is I didn't want to be a chef. I was a bit of a knucklehead growing up, and
Me too.
My parents were like, "What are you going to do with yourself?" And I don't know. Like, I didn't have any ambition. I wanted to. Honestly, what I wanted to do is I wanted to be a fighter. I wanted to be a boxer or an MMA fighter. That was my passion.
Oh wow.
Early days of UFC is like UFC 1. I was like, that's what I want to do. But I couldn't explain that to my parents. Like, what do you want to do with yourself? I want to be the next Mike Tyson. That's what I want to be. And I was hanging out with one of my friends, and he says, talking about girls like young men do. And he says, you know who girls like? And I said, what do girls like? And he's like, they like chefs. I said, I'm going to be a chef.
They do like chefs.
They like chefs.
They love
I
chefs.
told my mom and dad, and they said, what do you want to do? And I was with my girlfriend at the time, and I said, I want to go to culinary school. I'm sorry, I want to go to chef school. And this guy was there that had a crush on my girlfriend at the time. And he says, you're going to go to culinary school. I said, what's culinary school? And he started laughing at me and saying, I said, it's chef school. And, he's like, this guy doesn't even know what culinary school is, making fun. He stole my girlfriend, by the way. True story.
Wow. Because he knew what culinary school was.
He knew what it was. I did.
He knew what it was.
Dumb punk kid. But when I got into it, because I played sports and whatnot, I was into the gym culture as a youth. I boxed a lot, and I realized that the kitchen culture was very similar to the atmosphere in the gym. Yes, chef. Yes, coach. Mm-hmm. The coach is like the chef. The sous chefs are like the pro fighters. Right. The line cooks are like the amateurs or the up and comers. And so I fit in really well with the kitchen culture. And I was not afraid of hard work. I've been working since I was 5 years old, and it just worked. So I was like, I like this. I didn't really like cooking, but I liked the environment. I got good at cooking being in the environment because I am creative and I like to like dig in. How do I get better at this? I'm competitive, and if you put me in any environment long enough, I start slow because I like to size it up, like what's going on here. But give me enough time, and I'm ultra competitive. Like, okay, now I understand the game. Now I'm going to beat everybody, and so that's the way I was in the kitchen.
Right.
Yeah.
Were you a saute guy, a grill guy?
All of it.
All of it. Okay.
All of it. No, well, I take that back. I was a saute guy, a pasta station guy, garde manger. I love garde manger.
Okay.
Spent time in the pastry kitchen, banquet catering. I did not like the grill station.
I feel like it's kind of one or the other. You're a grill guy, or you go down the everything else road?
I was more of a pot and pan guy.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a saucier. The grill was like, it's not that I never worked the grill.
Right.
I just hated when I worked the grill. Like those were the dark times in my career.
I was a grill guy in my teens, not at the level that you played at, but yeah, I was tired of getting yelled at and burned, and I was looking out in the dining room. I'm like, they don't have shit all over their clothes, and
Right.
the pretty girls are out there. So yeah, same. What was the first time, or where was the first time that you really knew, like, I'm good at this, and I think I can make a life out of this?
It was, I was working at an Italian restaurant in Denver, Colorado, and it was fine dining back then. And when I think about the food back then, it's like fine dining, best restaurant in the city. Like it'd be a joke today.
Right.
Like people would look and be like, "That's the best restaurant in the city." But back then, food trends were different and cooking was different. But it was the best Italian restaurant in the city, and I was like the junior sous chef. And I realized, like, I could do this. I was so intimidated to work in some other restaurants with celebrity chefs. And I remember talking to my chef, and I was like, hey, they're looking for a chef here, and this guy's a celebrity. And do you think I could ever be a sous chef there? He's like, yeah. He's like, that guy's food's not impressive. He's like, he's a celebrity, but his food's not good. I was like, yeah, I know, but he's making like green beans with bacon and like, stuff that I wasn't cooking at the time. It was like so complicated.
Right.
So I think that's when I started to build my confidence, is like being around these chefs and people telling me like, no, you're good. Like, you know what you're doing. We're glad when you're at work. Like things run better. My confidence wasn't there as a young chef, but my skills were there. And I think eventually the confidence caught up.
And did you find yourself gravitating towards Italian food, or was that was the first stop on many a culinary adventure? So
the adventure went like this. So I went to school in the Pacific Northwest in Portland, Oregon. So early on, it was like that Pacific Northwest,
yeah.
morels and fish, salmon and morels everywhere, right? And then
I like that cuisine. I
so
still like that cuisine,
really
by
good.
the way.
It's really good. And then I moved, and it was Southwest cuisine was like all the rage. Dean Fearing, Mark Miller, Stephen Piles. These guys are changing the game at that time.
Yeah.
And while they're changing the game, I never worked for any of those gentlemen, but everyone was copying them. So I worked for the people that were copying those guys, right? So I was learning, hey, we're going to do the blackened swordfish with the papaya salsa on top, right? And the purple mashed potatoes. It was like, whatever was going on at that time. So I went from like Pacific Northwest to that Southwest cuisine. And then I went into the Italian route and then the French. And, I stayed the majority of my career cooking outside of Southwest cuisine. And it was like European. Like that's what everyone kind of cooked. If you weren't like a really interesting chef like Dean Fearing or Mark Miller, like you were cooking what we called continental cuisine.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
Here, it was classically French-trained chefs using low country Southern shrimp and grits, she crab soup, But they were all the generation older than me, so they were all French-trained.
Yeah, everyone was back then.
Yeah.
Everyone was.
And when you were coming up, what was the environment in the kitchen?
I came in at the tail end of the European chef.
Okay.
So I'm taking it back to like mid-90s. And it's a crazy story. I remember the hotel where I was working at, this, European chef, old school guy, calls everyone into a meeting, all the cooks, and he says, we have this new department. It's crazy when I say this story because it's going to seem like this is so normal today, but back then it was not normal.
Sure.
Calls everyone in, all the cooks, all the sous chefs, and he says, we have this new department in the hotel called human resources. And he says, the human resources director wants to sit in on my meeting. I don't know why. I don't know why she's here. Like, he was pissed off about it.
Of course.
Old European guy, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, I was younger. I was like 18. So I kind of get it. It's like, okay, I get why they're here. He didn't. And he says, first order of business, everyone needs to work 8 hours, no overtime. And at 8 hours, if you go over, I'm going to clock you out. Right? So he's saying this in the meeting to everybody.
Right.
The human resources, the new girl's like, excuse me. And he's like, yeah. She's like, you can't say that. He's like, can't say what? She's like, you can't say you're going to take away their pay if they work more than 8 hours. And he looked at her like she had two heads. Like, I don't understand what you mean. And he's like, okay. And he kind of dismissed her. And then he kept going. And he says, and I need to make sure we're controlling our labor. So if you don't take a lunch, I'm going to take it out anyway. And she interrupts him again. She says, excuse me, chef. And he says, yes. And she says, you can't say that. And he says, can't say what? She says, you can't take their break out if they don't take their break. And I'll never forget this. He looked at her like confused and he says, but I'm the chef. And I'm watching this and I said, you're done. Like, I realized at that moment, I was like, you don't get it.
Right.
Like, the world is changing and you didn't.
Right.
And it was shortly after that you started to see, because you remember what it was like.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone was German, Austrian, French, like the serious chefs were.
Serious chefs.
And the Americans were kind of like, oh, you're American.
Right. Oh, yeah.
The serious chefs, if you watched any great chefs back then, great chefs of the world, whatever,
yeah.
like European guys.
Always.
And I remember watching that, and this was like my 18-year-old mind's prediction. I was like, these guys are done. The Americans are coming in.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's what the kitchen culture was like. So I was coming in at the transition of watching the old European guard in American kitchens leave, and then the rise and emergence of the American chef.
I had a similar experience. I was working in a 5-star hotel, and our chef was French, and it was later, so it was already happening. It was just like the chef in the hotel had not caught on yet.
Yeah.
And he would throw pots and pans and all these different things, and I was like, let's see how, about 90 days he was gone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
How do you think that informed early your behavior as a cook, the way you approached cooking?
You know, it made me not want to disappoint them. I never took it as like, oh my, like today they would say toxic chef, hostile environment. I get it. I never took it that way because like
neither did I, by the way.
Yeah,
neither I didn't. Those terms weren't around.
No, it's just like I was fine with it, and I know this sounds stupid, but like I said earlier, I was a boxer. I was an MMA fighter. I was not afraid that the chef was going to beat me up.
Right. Like,
he wasn't going to physically hurt me. He was just yelling at me. So it didn't bother me. I was like, but that's like the father figure, and I didn't want to disappoint him. So if he was yelling at me, it was more of like, what did I do? Okay. Why did I disappoint him? How did I mess up? I always wanted to make dad proud. Right. Chef. Yeah. And so I never took it as like, you know, they were being mean. It was like, I screwed up. I always like, what did I do wrong for him to be upset with me? I don't know. Maybe I need to go to therapy over that. But yeah. That's,
I was just about, so tell me about your home life, Andre.
But that's the way it was. It's like, you know, I was like, it made me better. I didn't take it the wrong way. I took it as a learning opportunity. It's like, okay, what did I do wrong? Why was he upset? And like, I think back to this one time, the chef threw the plate at me and I cooked a steak for his friend. So he invited a friend over and he was out there sitting down in the dining room talking to his friend, not eating, but sitting with his friend. And then the line is busy. You know, I got tickets everywhere. And then all of a sudden I see the chef come back with a plate and he threw it at me. And he's like, you know, it's fucking burned. And I did the old trick of like burned one side and flipped it over, hoping no one would notice. You know, total hack move on my part. But when I was young and I remember like, my soul was just crushed. Like I not only did the chef catch my screw up, but I didn't know it was for his friend. And it's like, the chef used to really like me, like I was his son. You know what I mean? And now it's like, damn it. I really and I'll never forget that. Like, that's the way I looked at it. Like, some of those moments, I remember them, and I don't ever remember, like, that they made me feel bad because of what they were saying. I remember those moments because I was embarrassed of my failure.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know for me coming up, and especially when I was working at like 5-star and Relais Chateau and these different, you know, that intensity, I always said, well, that's what you have to do to be the best.
Right.
You know, like it just didn't. I'm like, well, the guy. I'll never forget this new guy on Garmager. He burnt the foie gras. It was app station. It wasn't Garmager, but we had a foie gras app, and he burnt it. And the chef shoved it in his mouth and screamed at him and said, I want you to taste what burnt foie gras looks like and tastes like. And I was like, well, yeah, he won't burn it again. That's a $19 appetizer. But, you know, like it was not necessarily kind.
Yeah, no, the methods were unconventional. And I worked for this one chef that would carry around a rock salt in his pocket. And so if food was in the window, he would run his finger like on the steak or whatever, and he'd taste it. And if you forgot to season it, he would take the rock salt out, reach over the pass and say, your taste buds are not seasoned. Season your taste buds. And I remember when that first happened to me, like I didn't season something, and I'm looking at the other guys on the line, like, is he serious? And they're like, and it's like he has this rock across. And I'm like, you know, sticking my tongue. I don't know how many people have been licking that rock salt, but I don't forget that.
Right.
Like I never forgot to not season after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it produced a result, right?
Yeah, it did. I think now, like looking back on it now, I'm like, okay, maybe I would like. There's other approaches to get the same result.
Yeah.
But that's just what it was, and like it didn't bother me. And I talked to a lot of chefs about this. A lot of them say it didn't bother them. But much like that dinosaur I was talking about earlier, that didn't get that times were changing. I think chefs need to understand that times have changed. Things have moved on. People don't behave that way. This is not the way they were brought up at home, right? So they don't expect it at work. And also, people don't put up with it.
No, they don't.
No one wants to work for an asshole.
Right. And as that started to change, did that change the way you saw cooking, or did it make you more or less inspired to be a chef?
More inspired. I'll tell you what. Like in real life, I'm like. People that know me like say, oh, he's one of the nicest guys I ever know. Like in real life, I'm super nice.
Right.
And so a lot of times when I was in the kitchen, I would play the character because I thought that's what I had to do. I was like,
right.
And then afterwards I'd be like, hey, everybody, how's it? And then they'd be like, who is this guy? Like he was just upset like 5 minutes ago. Now he's happy-go-lucky. But in real life, I'm nice. And I would behave a certain way because I thought that's what I needed to do because that's the way chefs were.
Right.
And it wasn't until I recognized that sometimes I was successful and other times I wasn't. And every time I wasn't successful, it had to do with me. Like I wanted to find an excuse. I was that person. It was this person. But no, it was me. And the person that was creating the culture and the environment in which people were not pleased to work in, and there was high turnover and disgruntled cooks, it was like me. It was my leadership. It was no one else.
Right.
And the places where I was very successful had nothing to do with food quality. It had everything to do with my attitude and how I treated my team. And that's when I started to see the correlation. Those were really like the early beginning stages of Chef's PSA. I was starting to figure it out. Like I was looking at, there's a better way to play this game to get better results. And, you know, I'm looking at the whole scenario. And I'm like, okay, if I'm nicer and I'm more of a leader that understands and cares about my team and wants the best for them, it's not just about what I want for me, it's what I want for them. And they understood that right away. It's like, if I win, you win, we win together.
Right.
Like if I'm successful, you're successful. It was never I'm the winner.
Right.
You guys are the props to make me look good.
That's
and
right.
We win together. And once I started shifting my mindset, that's when things started to get better. I'm sorry. But I did have my highs and lows in my career. And I would say like I started really nice because, like I said, I worked for some really intense chefs, but then I had a really great mentor, like a chef that, shout out to Patrick Mitchell. Like he was like the most professional gentleman chef I've ever worked for. And I worked with him for like 5 years, and he was a great mentor. And so after him going out on my own, I adopted that style, you know, mentor, generous. Right. And then I went through this crazy period when the media got involved. And once the media got involved and my ego got out of control, then I kind of hit the dark side. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of lost everything. My restaurants closed and I failed. And I was like, okay, back to the light side, right? Like I needed a failure in life to recognize that what I was doing was incorrect. And so it allowed me the opportunity to correct it.
Failure's our greatest teacher.
Yeah, it really is. It sucks though. Failure is the greatest teacher in the hardest way.
It's soul crushing.
Yeah.
the CEO of NVIDIA, you know, all the AI craze. He says, "I wish you great suffering."
Right.
Because he he was the context of the whole comment was that that's where all of our lessons come from. So yesterday in the retreat, I said, "I wish you all great suffering," and they all kind of laughed.
No, that was. I'll tell you, your presentation was great, and I love the whole Kaizen 1% better philosophy that your company, you know, that you really lead from the front, and I think that's brilliant. That's something that I talk about too with my teams. Like the 1% better every day is. I never used the word Kaizen, but I will now. I'm going to totally steal that from you.
Okay, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I've had the benefit, and I said this yesterday, but I really mean it. Like, I have been curious and a student of this industry since the day I found it, and I'm 30 years later. The majority of my vacations are based on food. You know, we're now in the hotel business, so I'm like, everything's always changing. So I think it's that curiosity that drives me to be better. I'm like, okay, we've been doing this for a while. What else are we getting? You know, and I also, Gramercy Tavern is my favorite restaurant in America. Michael Anthony, the chef, has become a dear friend. I've probably eaten there 60 times. And you go and it's 30 years old and they're doing, you know, hundreds of covers a day. The place doesn't feel tired. It feels relevant. And that's like, to me, that's the benchmark.
But what do you think the secret to their success is? Like if you had to put lightning in a bottle.
Interesting. Michael is one of the nicest. By the way, it's interesting that you mentioned Patrick because Michael is just a kind soul. I've never met anybody that's met Michael Anthony that hasn't been like, he's incredible. I think the key is curiosity, you know, staying forward thinking. The hospitality is so warm and genuine always, and they've been through the stuff. I mean, I got a flight canceled in New York. I was connecting right after lockdown, and I text Michael and I said, "Hey, are you in the kitchen tonight? I'm going to come by." And he said, "Yeah, but I need to tell you, every single person in this building is a new employee." And Gramercy had like 20-year, 10-year people, and they kind of all just scattered during COVID. So even in the midst of all that, they've rebuilt their DNA. And I've watched them struggle to do that, and now they're just really hitting that stride again. But I think it's all the things. The food it's soulful, and I'm a big, you know, like there's been some things over the years. I've been to molecular places, not Alinea, but people in that world. And I'm like, this is interesting, but it's not soulful. So I think Gramercy Tavern is soulful.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, you go back and you're like, this feels good.
So there's a restaurant in Austin called Birdie's. Shout out to those guys.
Birdies?
Yeah.
I've not eaten there.
So they were, I want to say, Esquire's,
I know the name.
#1, or Bon Appetit's #1 restaurant in the world or America. I don't remember what it was, but shout out to those guys. And I went there, and their food was so good, but it was so approachable. She's a Gramercy person, I think. I think she came from Gramercy.
There you go.
And what I found interesting about her food, and it's probably the same thing at Gramercy, which I haven't been, and I would imagine it's like, what was so great about her food, it's like if a really talented chef invited you to their house and cooked for you, like they loved you.
Yes.
That's what the food tastes like.
I'm going to steal that.
Yeah.
I'm going to steal that for sure.
Yeah, they weren't trying to gimmick you out. Like they were cooking for you like they love you.
That's what I meant. Some of the gimmicky stuff, I'm like, you know. What's your proudest moment as a chef?
Seeing the people that have worked under me as like sous chefs or executive sous chefs really get their shine. Like nothing makes me more proud. Like anything I've accomplished is fleeting. Like the first one meant a lot, but after that they all kind of feel the same. But every time I see someone that was a sous chef for me get their first executive chef job, get a write-up in the paper. Right? You know, they get their first star of whatever's rated. Like that to me makes me more proud than almost anything I've ever accomplished on my own. Like seeing them shine is like, man, I love it. One of my former chef de cuisine, he just came back from Lyon. He was part of the Bocuse d'Or team.
Awesome.
He was one of the sous chefs there. I think that's what they call them, like the people in the back that are helping the competitor.
Yeah.
So his name is Jacob Chishchin, and he's one of the most talented chefs. And like he was over there helping them and doing all that. And me being so proud of him saying, like, you're on the fucking Bocuse team, man.
I know.
Like, how cool is that?
That's
and
a
maybe
big
he'll
deal.
compete on his own one day and try out for next year. And that's to be determined. But just to know that like someone that was my chef de cuisine is like, the backup, the alternate, the behind the scenes for the Bocuse, for Steffi de Palma, who was the competitor this year for the Bocuse. It's like, it means a lot to me, like to see the people that have worked under me shine. Like that is incredible. I want them all to succeed. I want them all to surpass me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just had one of our culinary directors who was overseeing our Italian restaurants. He left to open his own place, and I'm so proud of him. And my number 2 is in Nashville now, about to open his 3rd restaurant, and that's really gratifying.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, well, so walk me through. You're a chef.
Yeah.
And you said, I think I'm going to do something else. What
Yeah.
led you to PSA? I mean, like, you're a pretty interesting guy. I mean, I remember the first time somebody had reposted something on Instagram, one of your posts, and it was about a cook's mentality and what needed to be present in order for a cook to be successful. And it was very refreshing because I feel like the last 4 years, especially post-COVID, there's so much noise about how bad the industry is and how toxic it is, and all of that's true. But there's a lot of good people, and I remember reading, you're the first person I've ever heard from a chef's point of view. Really, you're laying the truth down,
Yeah.
but you're doing it in a way that feels good.
I'm trying to communicate with them in a way that hopefully they'll make sense.
Right.
Right. So I'm not using the same language that I would have used 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Right.
Correct.
I'm trying to speak to today's audience using today's terms. When we throw out the word toxic kitchens, I feel like it's a little bit lazy, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's not toxic kitchens. It's usually toxic person in that kitchen. There's a toxic person. It might be the chef. It might be the sous chef. It might be a line cook. It might be the owner. It might be the GM. It's someone that is making everyone else not want to be there, and then it's infecting their attitudes. But there's toxic law firms. There's toxic doctors. There's toxic Walmarts.
Yes. And nobody's talking about that the way they are about. Yeah.
What the real issue is, we're talking about assholes, right? It's this person that's, because there's great kitchens. Like, no one says, certain places are great. Like, there's just as many good kitchens as there are bad ones, but for some reason we just wanted to focus on the bad ones, right?
I agree.
And I think back to kind of why I wanted to start Chef's PSA is I mean, there's a lot of reasons. It wasn't like one thing. It was probably like 50 little things that were just pushing me in that direction. But one of the biggest reasons was, I'll tell you the COVID story. During COVID, if you remember, like everyone's looking at their phone at home. It's like people are making, like, every single celebrity chef is like, let me show you how to make this salmon salad. Like with strawberries. Like they were all, it's like, I don't need to see another 3 Michelin star chef teaching me how to make a salad.
Right.
Right. Like I've had enough. Everyone's trying to teach you how to cook at home. So one of my friends, his name is Matthew Peters, shout out to him. He's the first American to win the Bocuse d'Or. And so we were at my house and we're smoking cigars and we're watching the UFC fight. And he says, he kind of pops the idea in my head. He's like, you should do like, since everyone's cooking, you should do like leadership stuff because you like that. I was like, that's a good idea. It was like there was no competition in that area.
Right.
Like culinary leadership, teaching you how to be a chef, like did not exist. So he planted the seed. I was like, okay. And then so another day I'm walking through Target and I hear the intercom, and I want to say they said Taylor Swift, or maybe it was Selena Gomez. It was one of these artists. Like, check out their new cooking class. I'm like, cooking. Like, I don't want to learn from Taylor Swift. I was like, why does she have a cooking class? I should have a cooking class. I was like, oh, I should. Like, I should have a leadership class. Like, so these were little things that were pushing me in that direction. And eventually I was like, you know what? I'm still young enough where if I am, eventually every chef has an expiration date.
Yeah.
Right? It's too physically demanding to be in the kitchen.
Correct.
Or like you wind up, being the chef at the place that you thought you would never be the chef at. And that's different for everybody because it's easy. Right, or you take the sales vendor route, whatever it is, right? And it's like, so I'm
work at Cisco,
right. So I'm looking at my future, and I'm like, that is going to be me unless I figure it out. So I'm like, I like boxing, I like fighting. I was like, I'm going to try and retire on top, undefeated. So I'm going to leave now while my legacy's intact as a chef, and then I'm going to pursue this while I'm still smart enough and young enough and tech savvy enough where I could figure out how to do this. And I have some time where like. My world's not going to fall apart if I don't figure it out right away. In worst case scenario, I could always go back to being a chef. But I've been in this world now for 3 years, and I know this sounds stupid, but the longer I'm in it, the less and less likely I'll ever go back.
Yeah. Have you been surprised at the response to the podcast?
Yeah. So
tell me about that.
It's one of the things like right now I'm struggling with mentally. Is the success of how quickly the podcast has grown, that I can't go anywhere without, are you Chef's PSA? Are you André? Like, and that was cool. And I like talking to people, but I'm realizing like I go to restaurants and I'm constantly at chef events, and like everywhere I go, people know me, and I'm quiet and reclusive in real life. And so it's not that I don't want to talk to people. I enjoy talking to them.
Right, sure.
But I'm realizing like this is just what it's like now. Like it's not going to get easier. So it's one of the things that I struggle with now is like I'm now just starting the beginning stages of what it feels like to be famous. And I don't want to say like I'm famous, but, but in the chef world, people know me. And everywhere I go, people want, they talk to me, and it's like, okay, is this enjoyable? And talking with chefs is enjoyable, and meeting new chefs is enjoyable. But I'm like, this is just the beginning. What's the next level of this? What's the next level of that? And is that going to be enjoyable? When I'm in Whole Foods the other day, and I see 2 people following me, and like my spider senses go up. I'm like, get the strap, like 50 Cent. No, I'm just kidding. But my spider senses are going up. Like, who are these 2 people following me? And before I know it, finally one guy turns to the other one and is like, he's that chef guy. I'm like, okay, that's why they're following me.
Right.
But like, this is a new world for me that I'm not used to navigating. So I would say in the past year, I've been like figuring out how to be comfortable in this world where people know me more than I know them.
Why do you think it's been so popular?
I think it's been popular because I'm just saying like what needs to be said. That's it. It's like the chefs that say what I need to say don't say it. So I'm not saying anything that other chefs don't think. I'm saying
100%.
I'm saying exactly what everyone else is thinking, but they're not saying it. And I understand why they're not saying it. Like I'm just saying, let's say you're a big name A-list chef. You can't say what I'm going to say because it's going to hurt your brand.
Right.
It's going to hurt your restaurant or whatever, but I could say it. Like anything that I say that's stupid, and I say a lot of stupid shit. But anything that I say that's stupid, it's going to hurt Chef's PSA. It's like I could live with that. I mean, not that I'm trying to hurt my own brand, but it's like I'm responsible for it. I don't have a boss that's going to tell me what I can and can't say.
Right.
Where they're not. It's not just their restaurant, but it's the investors, it's the employees. Like they affect a lot of people by saying something stupid.
Yeah, no, I'm very aware of I don't think I've said too many stupid things. There was a comment I made once on social media around 2011, and I didn't think it was that controversial. It was on the fringe of politics, and I didn't even make a post. I commented on a news article. I got barbecued, man. I mean, people were furious, and after that, I was like, I need to be a little more careful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, by the way, thank you for saying what you're saying, because I think operators, chefs, front of the house. I think one of the things that we're struggling with now as an industry, and I felt like it was around the time of the TV chef, and that started really become. Um, I think there's false expectations of what this is.
Right.
I think there's false expectations of how long climbing the quote unquote ladder is. 5 years ago, it was, well, people just aren't willing to do the work. And yet, people are going out to dinner more than they ever have. We need more people in this industry, but we need people. And I'm not saying, oh, back in my day, like there were a lot of things wrong with what we were discussing earlier. But I love what you're doing because I think you're setting the tone in a constructive way about what it means to become a chef. So thank you for that.
Thanks. One of the things that that I think is important, and this is really why I do what I do, is that I think about mentorship, and I think about the mentors that have helped me and the rooms that I've been in, even indirectly. If I'm in the room with like all these great chefs and I'm 18 years old, they might not be mentoring me, but they are because I'm listening.
They are. That's right.
I'm listening. I'm listening to what they're saying. I'm quiet. I'm observant, and I'm paying attention to what they're saying. And back in the day, I used to be a part of this organization that was a group of certified master chefs, part of the Epicurean World Master Chef Society, and they would do these food grazers where they're setting up and handing out little bites. And I was always like, tell André to go wash the dishes. Tell André to go, and I loved it because I was always listening to the conversations of these.
Being a student.
Yeah. Like watching how they cooked that, asking them questions, listening when they talked, and then when they would get bored, they'd just start talking to me, giving me advice for no reason. It's like, I love that. And what I realized is like, I could pick up the phone, you could pick up the phone, and your network of chefs and restaurateurs and people that are influential in this business is like a phone call away.
Right.
You have access to that. I have access to
Yeah.
that. But a lot of people don't. And it took me a minute to realize, like, what do you mean you can't pick up the phone and call up one of the greatest chefs in the world? Everyone can. It's like they can't.
They can't.
And so when I thought about that, I was like, well, how do I bring those people into the conversation? They should be able to listen to world-class chefs, James Beard winners, Michelin star winning chefs. They should be able to just sit around and, like I did when I was a young cook, listen to what they were talking about and just be a sponge, just be a fly on the wall. Like, what would you give to be a fly on the wall at the conversation, with Ferran Adria, Rene Redzepi, and Thomas Keller?
Yeah.
Right? You would love that.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, well, if I
would actually pay money for that.
right. Just to listen to them talk
just to
and eat
listen.
dinner.
Yeah.
And talk
yeah,
shit,
yeah,
right? And so that's really what I want to do with my podcast is just say, hey, there's a lot of bad advice out there from people that never did it. Why don't I help you get advice from people that did it the right way? And listen to them, because maybe it'll be a counter narrative to what you're hearing from the disgruntled cook next to you who's saying, they would promote me, but I'm too good.
Right. What do you think the role of the food media has been and is and should be in informing the folks what it's like to work in the industry?
I think they need to be very clear that the industry is not one industry. It's the restaurant industry.
Right.
It's the food media industry. It's the healthcare industry. It's the hotel industry, and they're not all the same.
No.
And I think they need to be very clear, because they paint everyone's a chef. It's like, no. The chef who's working on a cruise ship runs a very different operation than the chef at the independent restaurant.
Right.
And they have different needs and different lifestyles.
That's right.
The chef who's a content creator on TikTok is very different from the chef who's running a 3 Michelin star kitchen.
Yeah.
And they're not the same. And the hours, there's crossover and there's similarities, but they're not the same. And they pay different, and the expectations are different. And I think what we need to do is we need to start clarifying that a little bit, and not saying one is better than the other, but no, there's options, but they're not all the same, and they all have a slightly different feel. You're looking for benefits, and you have a family, and you want to grow your career, and you want 401k and deferred comp. Maybe a hotel or a corporate setting's for you.
That's right.
Right? But maybe you want to be the next 3 Michelin star chef, maybe going to Noma and taking stages in France is for you. Like, those are 2 different paths.
Right.
And I think understanding that is important. I don't think we do a good job at clarifying that to young chefs and saying the industry's big and there's a lot of opportunities, but it's important that you understand that they're not all the same and you're going to work differently in each one.
I love that. That's the best answer I could have possibly heard. Leading like an executive chef, is this an evolution of PSA? Is this adjacent?
This was before Chef's PSA.
Okay.
So I was saying earlier how I heard this Taylor Swift or something in Target, right?
Right.
And so ironically enough, someone reached out to me from Dallas and they're like, "Hey, we're a production company. We want to give you your own show." And I was like, "Cool." And they're like, "It's going to be this is during COVID. It's going to be a travel show. Think like a corporate version of, go like a Anthony Bourdain, but a corporate version." I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, I didn't know where they were going.
Right.
But they're like, "We want you to talk to chefs about how they're reopening their business after COVID. Like, how did they pivot?" And I was like, "Okay, this doesn't sound a whole lot of fun, but I want my own show."
Right.
So I like signed up. I did 2 seasons. And while I was doing those 2 seasons, the media company that I was talking to, Market Scale, they do a lot of B2B and things like that. And so they said, we kind of want to do classes, like similar to master classes, probably like the best thing I could say. Like, we want to do classes. Would you be interested in piloting one of those? I was like, yeah, I have an idea. Like, I want to do like leadership for chefs. Like, this going around talking about COVID and pivoting wasn't as fun as I thought.
Right.
as fun as I thought. So it's like, let's do like a master class style, lead like an executive chef. And let's cover the things that are not so glamorous, but people need to know. Let's talk about food costs. Let's talk about labor. Let's talk about negotiation. Let's talk about leadership. Let's talk about dealing with difficult employees. Like, let's just cover all the things that you need to know as a chef, but no one ever tells you because you were the sous chef and you were the best on the saute. Right. And then now you're promoted, and it's like, "Hey, by the way, I know you never dealt with this before, but you got an HR issue over here.
Right.
And by the way, these vendors are screwing you over. And how do you negotiate a better price?" Like, they don't ever, like, you got to figure it out. And you're going to get screwed over a couple of times until you figure it out. So I was like, how do I shortcut a chef's learning curve? So I was like, that's what I want to do. And that's what Lead Like an Executive Chef, the class, turned into.
And did it turn out how you thought?
I think it turned out better than I thought, because I really didn't, like, I wasn't really camera trained.
Right.
And so it's like, I'm still a chef at that point. Like, I'm still working as a chef, doing this thing on the side. And back then, my brand that I was going for was different. So this is like pre-COVID. So back then, I was like fancy suits, expensive watches.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the look I was going for.
Understood.
I was like, I want to be like the Mexican James Bond. Right? Like El Gondo.
El Gondo, I love it.
So I was like, let me go for that. But then after a while, like, once Chef's PSA started, I was like, yeah, that just doesn't fit with me anymore. Like, that's who I am when I'm like being that guy.
Right.
But like, I'm the hoodie baseball cap guy. Like, so
sure.
that's the brand. That's not the brand. That's me.
That's
right. You. So, did I like how it turned out? I liked how it turned out. It just feels a little bit off of what I do now.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I hadn't fully like figured out who I was. If I go back and listen to old podcast interviews with me, like when I was still a chef, it's so different because I'm like, boy, I was that guy. Like, that doesn't sound like me anymore.
Right.
Because I was like intense. Like, I still had that edge.
Understood.
That a chef has, like, more direct answers were just a little bit more curt, right? I still tried to be thoughtful, but kitchen needs to be this way, right? Period.
That's it.
That's how you run it. It's like this. And now I understand, like, I was coming from a world where, like, these are the way I run kitchens. Since I've been doing Chef's PSA, and I interact with all types of chefs now.
Right.
Where I was definitely in a bubble. I interacted with chefs who cooked like me, thought like me, and were in the same circles as me. Like, we all go to the food and wine festivals. We all cook there, right? We're all on the circuit of, we all know each other.
Yeah,
right?
the circuit, yeah.
And then when I left that and started Chef's PSA, and I started getting introduced to this whole other world of chefs that needed mentorship, cooks that needed mentorship, and it's like, oh, I'm thinking different now because I'm saying every kitchen should be like this, but I'm only thinking like kitchens that want to be like this, not kitchens that want to be like this. Like they're not trying to be, you know, the Soigné fine dining kitchen.
Right.
They want to serve this and they want to run their kitchen like that. It's like, okay, I need to adapt my style as well because I also grew. I grew as a chef after I stopped being a chef, understanding how different the industry is.
Wow. That's powerful.
Yeah, thank you.
When you look at the industry now, are you excited about where we're going or are you concerned?
I'm excited. I'm excited because I think, and you know this, the food today is 100 times better than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like if you take the skill of a moderate line cook today and you say, you know, create some specials for me, it's going to look better than the best restaurants 20 years ago.
Correct.
Like the best restaurants 20 years ago.
Correct.
Right? Like the best chefs 20 years ago, you know, had their clunky tongs and, you know, like putting a bunch of asparagus on something. And it's like,
yeah.
And that's the way it was. And so today's cook, the food is so much better. Our knowledge of food is so much better. The pizza today is better. The sushi, everything that we do, like we understand it better, right? On the downside, because it's faster, people are progressing through their career much quicker and they don't want to stay learning how to make pizza for 5 years, right?
Yeah.
So they're progressing through the stations a little bit quicker due to the internet. Like I could pick up my phone and look at what the hottest restaurant in Hong Kong is doing today, and I could replicate that if I kind of know what I'm doing.
Right.
You couldn't do that before. So I think the speed at which people are learning is just light years faster. The quality is better, but the leadership and the purpose is missing from cooks today. Like, what's in it for me? Why should I be on the pizza station for 5 years? What's in it for me? That's what's missing.
Right.
Is before you're going to be on the pizza station for 5 years because in 5 years you're going to be the sous chef and in 10 years you might own this place. Right? That's what's in it for me.
That was the goal.
That was the goal 10 years ago. Today, it's like, what's in it for me? Because I've been on my station for 3 months. I already know how to make pizza. And my friend that I went to culinary school with is now the sous chef. What's in it for me now?
Right.
And I think a lot of chefs, and I don't have the answer to this. I'm recognizing the problem, but I haven't really figured out like, okay, here's a good way to solve it.
Got it.
I'm recognizing the problem that a lot of chefs are angry. Like, you know, I talk to chefs all the time. It's like, oh, they're not what they used to be. You know, no one cares anymore. It's like, okay, but why?
But why?
But
right.
Why don't they care anymore?
Right.
Like, what's the problem? And what's in it for them? And I think that's where we're going to start to discover how to solve the issue is when we ask the question, what's in it for the chef? What's in it for the 18-year-old line cook? Like, what's in it for them to stay on that station?
Right.
And I think when we start putting ourselves in their shoes, because they don't have the same aspirations we did, they grew up in a different generation. They grew up with a cell phone in their hand and instant knowledge. They have AI now, and they could figure shit out really quick.
Right.
So what's in it for them? And I think when we start understanding that, I think the industry will start course correcting.
That's profound. I might watch this over and over again. I might share this with some chefs. A couple more questions, and I'll leave you to your day. Tell me about your greatest hospitality experience.
I could remember it like it was yesterday.
Most people can.
So I'm at Spiaggia in Chicago. Great restaurant.
Yeah, eaten there twice.
I'm there with 4 chefs. I'm sorry, I'm the 4th. So there's 3 other chefs. You know, top chef kind of alum and that level, right?
Yep.
Everyone's good. And the server comes over and it's like, we're ordering dessert. It was like a flight of ice creams, like 4 little scoops of ice cream on you remember those skateboard crystal or glass skate with like 4 little divots of ice cream, right?
Yeah.
So we have 4. All 4 of us go into the first one. It was a pistachio. We're all like, oh, that's really good. Like the pistachio was the bomb. It was so good. Before we could even finish the pistachio ice cream, The server comes out with another scoop of pistachio and says, I noticed you guys liked that so much, I brought you another scoop. Before we had even tried the other three on the thing.
Wow.
And I just remember thinking, like, thank you. It was amazing. Cost them 25 cents. Ish, right? 25 cents, but here I'm on your podcast talking about it.
I know.
Right?
It's pretty perfect. Yeah, still.
It cost them nothing. It was the fact that the server was intuitive enough to watch and say, these guys really dig the pistachio ice cream. Chef, can we get them another scoop? Chef didn't throw up a fit and say, I'm busy. No, absolutely. Let's take care of them. Send them another scoop. Within seconds, we have another scoop. His spiel made it smooth, right? It was all class, finesse. Here's another scoop. We were blown away because we didn't have time to process what happened. We were like, how did he know so fast? It was so good. And when I think about that, to me, and I think about hospitality, I think a lot of people talk about luxury and fine dining and this, that, and the other. And it's like, I don't know if Will Guidara said this. It's like getting stuff that you didn't know you wanted or something like that. Like you didn't know you needed it, but you got it. It's like, damn, how'd you know I needed it? Yeah. It's like you're talking about the foie gras. And it's like you get the foie gras, torchon, or maybe it's whatever with some bread. And then they don't give you enough bread. And just when you think you're out, they show up with warm bread.
Yes, there's never enough bread with the torchon, by the way. And when they show up, never. And when they show, it's almost like they are restraining. If they're doing that intentionally, then that's brilliant.
Right, or you order the truffle dish, and they shave the truffles, and then you leave, and there's never enough truffles.
Never enough truffles.
And they come back a few seconds later and shave more.
Right.
And they're like, I noticed. And it's like, that to me is like anticipating. Like, I didn't know, I mean, I knew I wanted more truffles. I knew I needed more warm bread. But you also like anticipated, like it's part of the behind the scenes plan. They already know.
That's right.
Right? They already know, like, okay, you know, we're going to send out the foie gras. Okay, time it 2 minutes, send out the second bread. Like they know it's part of their plan.
Right.
But it's like, that's to me, thoughtful hospitality is like you're providing things like that the guest is experiencing that we're not thinking about. Because, and in order to do this, by the way, I think it's really important to say this. In order to do this, people need to eat their own food and experience it as a guest.
Yes, and I don't know why more chefs don't eat in their own restaurants.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually have this conversation with some of our chefs. When's the last time you ate in your restaurant?
Yeah, it doesn't work.
And I'm like, man, you really need to do that.
Yeah.
Most likely it's going to make you appreciate what you're doing more, but your team also needs to see you do it, you know?
And does it work? Because a lot of times it works when you're standing up on a stainless steel table, taking a bite here and there, and it works. And then you're tasting it off the cutting board or whatever. And then you go to the table, it's like it's the wrong cutlery. But you didn't know that because you never sat down and ate it.
That's right.
Right? It's the wrong cutlery.
Or the wrong dish.
Or the wrong plate.
Oh,
right?
my God.
I can't eat it out of the bowl.
The bowl that like your fork keeps falling in and you're like, I know the bowl looks cool, but did anybody like actually eat this before they put it in the bowl?
Right. Yeah, those are the things that you don't know when you're tasting it just in the kitchen. You like, even if it's just like maybe you don't want to eat in the restaurant, chefs, but maybe just taste it at a table.
Right.
Just taste it at a table with the way it's going to be served. You don't have to if you're not going to dine there. I get it. Like maybe that's just not you, but at least taste it as the customer's going to taste it, the guest, because I think that they're missing out. And a lot of times, a lot of chefs will taste components individually, and they'll say, okay, the puree is good, the sauce is good, the garnish is good, the meat's good, the dish should work. It's like, taste it all together, too, because sometimes it doesn't work.
Tell me about mental health. What is that? Just saying those two words, what does that mean for you, Andre?
It's an interesting question, because for me, mental health, I'm a very disciplined person. And so like I will do things to make sure that my mental health is good. And sometimes I don't like talking about mental health because I don't have solutions, because I feel like I'm not an expert in it.
Okay.
Like if someone came to me for mental health advice, it's like I'm not the right person to ask, because I know what I do. Like like my journey might be different than yours, and what
Yeah.
works for me might not work for you. Like if someone came to me and said, you're always this, I'm like, yeah, well, I've programmed my brain to think that way
Right.
for years, right? Like I'll meditate. I've learned to not say bad things about myself to myself, right? Like I never.
That's really profound, by the way.
Yeah, like that to me is a game changer. Never call yourself stupid, poor,
Right.
right,
Right.
lazy. Like I don't say those things to myself. Maybe if I'm joking, but like even when I'm joking and I catch myself, I'm like in the back of my head, like don't say that. So my mental health is curated to my own environment, but just because it works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for someone else. Because
But you have an intentional
yeah,
routine. That's
I
great.
have things that I do intentionally for my own mental health, but I think, have you ever heard the expression bad ideas get pruned off?
No.
So like you have a bonsai tree and you're shaping it like
Yeah.
until you get to where you want. All the bad ideas I've already pruned off. So I already know what works for me. But I've pruned off hundreds of bad ideas that didn't work, right?
Yeah.
And so when someone comes to me and says like, will my mental health routine work for them? I don't know because I've pruned off 100 bad ideas and those bad ideas might have worked for you.
Right.
So I don't know. I think everyone's on their own individual needs basis. I could tell you what I do. Like I meditate. I'm a firm believer in meditation. I meditate every day. Haven't missed a day in years. I have a breath work routine that I do. It works. I think positive things to myself. I really focus on the language that I use when I'm talking about the future. I try to practice some sort of mindfulness, exercise, things like that. But it's not like I'm not like this profound mental health guy. I've also come, like I had a hard life, like as a kid. I started working when I was 5 years old. And I'm not joking. Like my dad, he was a hardworking man. And he said, like I just wanted to play football. Like I was a kid, I just want to play football. And he's like, nope, you're going to work. And so he ran his own business, his own carpentry and upholstery shop. And so like when it was summertime, it's like I thought I could go play. Like, no, you're going to go to work when I go to work and you're going to come home when I come home. And he's a workaholic. So I was leaving to work at 7 a.m. and I was coming home at 10 at night with him. So long days at work were never like a big deal for me because I've been doing that since I was 6. My dad wanted me to sell, like Mexican popsicle stands, like those paleta carts. So when I was 6 years old, my dad had me sell paletas because he wanted me to learn work ethic. And he's like, I'll keep the money and I'll buy you, and you can have all the popsicles you want. Like, but you need to learn work ethic. So he would drop me off like at the flea market or something like that and sell popsicles. So I've been working my entire life, and I had a dad, military background, stoic guy, that like people were different back then. And so I started boxing. I was in fight gyms. So what's hard to me is probably different than what's hard to other people. Like when someone tells me, I'm upset like this, I can understand you're upset, but I can't relate. Because I can't understand why you'd be upset after working 6 hours when you're 30, when I was working 18 hours and I was 6. So I can't relate to that.
Right.
So with regards to the mental health subject, the best thing I could do is tell people, like, don't come to me for mental health advice because I don't know where to guide you. But what I can say is there are experts out there that can guide you. And I think if you are having mental health issues or you have needs, I think it's important that you find those sooner than later because they don't go away. Those
Never.
voices stay there.
Yeah.
Those thoughts, they're on repeat, right?
100%.
And until you start working on it, and even when you do work on it, sometimes it doesn't go away. But for me, and I'd love to know your take on this because I'm not an expert in it.
Right.
But like I think it's an individual journey for everyone, and it feels different for everybody.
I would agree. I mean, I'm a recovering alcoholic and addict, and I had my first drink at 11. My dad died at 10, and that was my coping mechanism. And I was to drugs by 12. I mean, it was a rapid shot. In the world of addiction, we talk about how everybody has a different bottom, which is a little bit similar to what you're saying. you know, unfortunately with addiction, it wins more than it loses. It's still like 1 out of 10 addicts get sober. I mean, it's still really, really low. My take on mental health, and I asked that question because I'm just glad I can ask you or anybody else now that question, and it's a quick answer. 10 years ago in our industry, we were not talking about mental health at all. I got really lucky. I walked into the restaurant that I managed, and the owner said, "You can go to rehab or you can clean your office out." And like every fiber in my being wanted to tell him to fuck off and go get a cocktail. But I was just broken enough and just tired enough that day that I didn't even think I could do it. Like 2001, sober in the restaurant business was not a thing. But I was so broken, and I got the gift of desperation. And that gift, when you get that gift, you're like, I'm willing to do anything, you know? And I got out, and nobody else was sober, and it was lonely as fuck. But I loved hospitality, and I knew I didn't need to drink again. And eventually, I started meeting other people, and then, you know, through a suicide of our chef, Ben's Friends was formed, which is now in 25 cities. You've met our chair in Austin, Philip Spear, who I love. So I've been able to be of service in a way that I didn't ever imagine. But, you know, when I was trying to not drink and do cocaine, I was just trying to not drink and do cocaine and get through one day. You know, to now be able to be a part of really making the industry healthier, which is needed, not just with drugs and alcohol. It's pretty, I'm humbled by it, but it's really gratifying.
I'd love to have you on Chef's PSA, maybe you and Philip. And
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I think I get a lot of questions on mental health, and it's something that I don't understand how to help people. Like, because sometimes I recognize that they need help, but I'm not like, I don't understand it.
Right,
I don't understand, like, where would I don't even know where to point you, because that's not my world.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'd love to have you come
Yeah,
down
man, I'll
and
come
talk
to
about
Austin.
it. You know, I don't know if you know Dan Kennedy's chef at Pasta Bar in Austin, but him and Philip, and I had another chef reach out to me too recently. He's like, I'd like to talk about, you know, chefs that also deal with chefs that are on the spectrum and stuff like that. It's like, this is a world that I can't speak to, but I know my audience has been asking me to speak to it, and I feel guilty sometimes shutting it down when they message me like, can you talk more about mental health? I'm like, I'd love to, but I don't know what to even say. I'm not an expert in it.
But I applaud your authenticity around that, because like just you saying that creates space for somebody else to talk in a way that might be meaningful, you know? I'd be honored to come on anytime.
I'd love to have you on.
Cool. Two more questions. And then you're on a road trip to Florida. Is that what I heard?
I'm doing like all over.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a bad decision, but in retrospect, yeah.
I used
should
to,
have been
man,
flying.
I used to really enjoy driving long distances. My back hurts now,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm like, I can't do it.
I'm realizing that now.
Yeah. It's part of the age process. What scares you the most? What are you afraid of?
Not being able to be not being. Okay, let me go back. You know what scares me is not being able to disappear. I love the idea of disappearing. And I was talking to, so this really fascinating guy came down. He did a study. He was interviewing chefs, and he's a professor. And he asked us a whole bunch of questions, like big psych exam and, you know, questionnaire, and like, tell me everything from the day you were born to today, and every important thing that happened. And he picked up a pattern on me that I'd never have picked up before. And he says, "Do you recognize every few years you reinvent yourself?" I was like, "No." I was like, "I didn't know that." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You know, this happens, then you reinvent yourself, and then this happens, and you reinvent yourself, and then this happens, and you reinvent yourself." I was like, "Well, I didn't know I do this." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, it's like you learn something, so you adapt and you change. I've noticed that, like, I was this chef, and then I transitioned into being this type of chef, and then I became this type of chef, and then I became this type of chef. You know, I was cooking Italian food, and, you know, I was a boxer, and then I went to this. Like, I've always been able to just like let me close that chapter and start the next one, going from being a chef to now chef's PSA. And I think what's like, I didn't know I was doing that. I found out I was doing that based on this person. So it scares me that if that would never be an option. I love the idea of like just one day saying, fuck it. I'm going to stop chef's PSA and I'm going to be a bartender. I love having options.
Yeah.
Because I don't like being tied to, I don't like any idea telling me who I am.
Okay.
Like that's my thing is like,
Right.
if I want to be chef's PSA right now, I will do that. But the second that I don't like doing it anymore, I don't want to do it. And I don't have to do it. It's like, I don't want to be a chef anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. Let's stop doing that.
Right.
And I love that. Like, if that option would be removed, that frightens me.
Okay. That's a really creative answer. I like that. Last question. What does hospitality mean to you?
Hospitality is like what we were talking about earlier. It's the things that I didn't know I wanted, and those needs being taken care of in a way that I wasn't expecting. That to me is hospitality. It's staying in your hotel room, right? I'm staying in this hotel, and you come back and they washed your clothes for you. You didn't ask them to.
Right.
Or
right.
They refilled your toothpaste. It's like, oh, thank you. It's going somewhere and them saying, here's your chess set or your checker set.
Yeah.
Right? That's
mind-blowing, man.
That to me is hospitality, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
it's those things. It's like it's something that you almost can't buy it, right? Like money could buy luxury. You could go and you could spend money and you could get beautiful Bernadotte china,
right?
And beautiful stemware and everything just feels right. And there's truffles and there's foie gras, but you could buy that, right? You could buy a luxurious clothes or a beautiful car, but the person that's sitting next to you in that car you can't buy. That's hospitality. It's like It's like the thing that you can't buy that just makes it better. That
much better.
Yeah.
Andre, thank you today for coming on. Thanks for speaking at our conference.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, absolutely. This is the Say Grace podcast. If you're struggling with addiction, you can always reach out to www.bensfriendshope.com. Check out Andre's podcast, PSA. It really, really, really is good. And we'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Say Grace, Food for Thought and Hospitality. We hope you join us next time as we continue to dive deeper into the inspirational stories about the transformative power of hospitality.